It's no secret that Tears of the Kingdom stays very close to heart with Breath of the Wild's map and overall experience. But from the crossover from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom, we did end up losing some enemies that would once have been seen. Breath of the Wild's lost content in Tears of the Kingdom. And to start it off, we're gonna talk about the gold mobs. So these are your gold bokoblins, moblins, Lizalfos, and Lynels. Now, these guys originally appeared in Breath of the Wild's Master Mode DLC. It's the DLC and game mode that doubles the game's difficulty and adds a few more things that makes it even harder of an experience for you. However, these guys did not make it into Tears of the Kingdom. Neither did Master Mode, but these guys in any form did not even appear in the game. It's like they were forgotten about entirely. Now, in Breath of the Wild, these guys when killed would drop the standard associated mob drops that would normally drop with one of these guys, as well as Amber, Opal, Topaz, Ruby, Sapphire, and Diamond. So these guys were a pretty valuable hunt, and it would have been cool to see them make it into the sequel, but unfortunately they did not. Whether they were overlooked entirely or just did not fit in Tears of the Kingdom, these guys have not been added to the game. Up next we're going to talk about the Sky Octo Rock. Now this one is not nearly as cool as the previous ones that we've talked about, and honestly does not matter if it's in the game or not. In Breath of the Wild, you would see these guys holding up platforms for bokoblins or moblins. And unlike every normal Octorok, these guys wouldn't even try to hurt you. They won't shoot at you, they won't damage you in any way. They just hold up the platforms of the other guys who wants to hurt you. Shooting them with an arrow easily kills them, and you don't have to worry about them too much after that. The platform will fall to the ground, and if anything still remains on that platform, it'll take some damage. However, these guys did not make it into Tears of the Kingdom. Maybe because the gimmick had already been used up in Breath of the Wild, but they were replaced with the Snow Octoroks. An enemy that honestly not many people really miss. They definitely weren't a staple of the series, and we definitely can go without them. So let's just move on to our next missing mobs, which are the Guardians, and pretty much any Sheikah tech for that matter. Now, for those who didn't play Breath of the Wild, the Guardians are one of the most obnoxious enemies that you'd have to kill. For almost the entire part of the game, they were a one-shot kill to ya, and took a lot of time to actually get rid of. But as you can see in Tears of the Kingdom, there is no remnants of any of the Guardians, any of the Sheikah tech, or nothing, except for Hanito Village's lab. At the top of the tower, you can see that there is still one Guardian that remains as a roof to the place, which is a nice little callback, but other than that, nothing else appears. No Guardian Stalkers, Skywatchers, Scouts, or even any form of ancient weapons have made it into Tears of the Kingdom. It does make sense as they were fully replaced by the Zonai and the Zonai constructs, so it's not like a huge chunk is missing out of the game that the Guardians filled. I mean, we did have a substitute, which makes sense. And I'm not really sure how the fusibility would work with the items that the Guardians dropped. In Breath of the Wild, they were more valuable for upgrading armor or just selling in general. But since Breath of the Wild is over with, they have been lost to time, it seems like. As well as the old Sheikah watchtowers and Ultra Beasts. Up next, we have Monk Maz and the Molduga King. I want to include these guys together because they're both bosses in Breath of the Wild, and they only appear from the game's DLC. They won't appear naturally. They have to be purchased from the Nintendo eShop. If they ever add a DLC that brings them back, then I could see them making their reappearance. But as far as I'm concerned, there's not really a need for the Molduga King or Monk Maz in Tears of the Kingdom, so these guys might just be abandoned to time. Although when you finally do defeat Monk Maz, you get the Master Cycle Zero, which is a dope substitute for the horse. And because it is a design of the Sheikah and uses Sheikah technology, it probably won't appear in TOTK honestly, but it definitely was a dope ride. And in the case of the Molduga King, killing him simply opens up the Kivatala Shrine, and he can also drop some old swords and shields from previous attempts to kill it, I guess. But at this point in the game, you really have no use for those weapons. So not super impressive. Up next is the Cursed Bokoblin, Moblin, and Lizalfos. Basically, just the stall versions of each of these mobs without their bodies. Appearing in different parts of Hyrule Castle and also during boss fights, these guys would be a minor nuisance, but honestly easily defeated with an arrow or a quick swing of the sword. They all stem from an eye that's somewhat close to wherever they're spawning from, and the only way that they'll stop spawning is if you hit that eye and finally get rid of it. And unfortunately, these guys don't even drop anything, so there's no point in even killing them. The more you let spawn, the more durability on your weapons you're wasting, and honestly, I'm glad that these guys didn't make a reappearance. They're not super special by any means, and are basically just pulled from the stall models of each counterpart. And now, obviously, as they moved on from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom, they did not want to reuse boss fights, as that would have been a little boring. I mean, we'd already done it once, so why would we do it again? But I just do have to bring up that all the different Blight Ganons, Calamity Ganon, and Dark Beast Ganon do not make their reappearance in this game. It being pretty obvious as to why, like I just said, but they were replaced by the other Shrines bosses. And obviously I don't expect these guys to make a comeback unless there is a DLC or some sort of thing, but we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. And that's it for the mobs, honestly. There's only one more thing that I want to talk about before I'm done here today, and that is the Great Horned Rhinoceros. Now, this guy's a nice in-between of monster and animal. Pretty innocent. Unless you get too close to them, then they will try to attack you and then proceed to run away. But these guys did not make a secondary appearance in Tears of the Kingdom. Why is that, though? Why did the Great Horned Rhinoceros not end up getting into this game? I mean, well, to be honest, I'm not sure. There's nothing that directly points to why these guys weren't added into Tears of the Kingdom, but they were pretty cool. You could get raw prime or gourmet meat from them, and they were a great source to hunt. But I do understand that sometimes content will be cut for no other reason than people just don't want it in the game anymore. Or maybe it was replaced by another mob that I'm just not seeing, but it was cool and we did have it. So other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it was a little informative at least. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching, guys. Peace.